Hi, it's GalaxyKuroNeko, and today we'll be going over the other deck I've been playing a lot of, Ishizu Runick. I think this deck's pretty good, and it's the deck I've been using a lot lately, since I think the branded Despia deck I'm using is not as good into some of the matchups, especially into Sprite and Mathmech. I feel like I've had struggles with mainly. This is the deck I've come up with for Ishizu Runick, and we'll go over the card by card. First card, Cyberstein. I think the card is very good. It's also a 2. It's funny for other things later on, but it's a great card which allows us to pay 5,000 life points to special summon one fusion monster from your extra deck in attack position. You want to use Cyberstein in a different deck like mine, without using some of the extra deck, make sure that you can special summon them. Because all these cards can be special summoned, but some cards have limitations like it must be fusion materials. Like, you could summon House Dragon Maid, but you can't, if you used, Cordius, you would not get its effect because it's just, while this is fusion summoned rather than special summoned. So on and so forth. We use 3 Maxis, we don't bother with Ash Blossom because we don't really care. And, we're using 1 Crossout to also counter the other Maxi that the opponent may use. We're also then using most of the Ishizu cards, apart from 1 Medora, with maxed out on all the others. We've got 4 Shufflers, 4 Millers. The Millers being Kelbeck and Megiddo, and the Shufflers being Keldo and Medora. The Shufflers allow us to either shuffle problem cards that are activating from the opponent, try and counter here, and also try and counter other Runic decks, or even Sprite decks when they try and target something with, say, Elf. It also allows us to even target our own cards to try and get them back into the deck if we don't have a activation of Runic Fountain that turn, or you want to maybe try and re-mill stuff with Guido, Calbeck, or see other cards like a Fountain that we've accidentally milled, or the Dimensional Fisher which I've added recently. The two different millers we have are Calbeck and Guido. They're sent to the graveyard from the handled deck. They allow us to discard 5 cards from both decks at the same time. Or less if there's less than 5, obviously. And if you mill a Kelbeck from a Guido or a Guido from Kelbeck, then you can mill 10 from either side. This will allow us to get some of the Runic cards into our graveyard, to activate a good Runic Fountain to recur a lot. Also allow us to hit some of the Shufflers so we can shuffle cards out as well. And also these cards have activated effects, which are either asked to discard a Air Fairy, special summon them, so we can discard a Kelbeck or Guido to mill on the hand, or we could discard one of the Shufflers and then get the other card to our hand, then special summon them. Which is why we're using Abyss Dweller, Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon to go against Floodgates, and Abyss Dweller to go against Element mainly. Also using 1 Lava Golem because it's slightly better against some decks than Kaijus. Allow us to burn our opponent as well if we can kind of keep them on it. I've cut back from 2 because I think 2 is kind of bricking my hand a lot. Using 1 Foolish Burial, mainly to send a Guido or Kelbeck, but we could also send Maxi for Spray Elf. It's weird, but it works. Using the 1 Terraforming because it's technically the 3rd Runic Fountain, and then 2 Runic Fountains. Allows us to use really quick plays from our hand during our opponent's turn, and allow us to recycle our Runic spells, up to 3 of them, into our deck, and draw 3 cards. Allow us to get into different Runic spells, to then use them on our opponent's turn to try and interrupt them. Using 3-Dimensional Fisher, this is merely a tier counter. It also can counter other decks like Mathmech, I believe, and Sprite. However, some decks kind of benefit off this, like Branded Despia can also benefit off this from the Tragedy, and they can recycle some of their stuff back from the Banisher. They can kind of play through it. Be careful of that. We're not using Microcosmos, the other Banish card, because that's bad for us. So that banishes all cards rather than just monsters. And monsters, we don't particularly need the Medora, Kelbeck, Guido, and Keldo, but sometimes we like to see it. Be careful, you cannot maxi under it, because it's banished. It needs to be sent to the graveyard. We're playing a 1 Runick alert because I feel like that's all we need, and sometimes people are a bit silly and try and negate and destroy alert, even though it's not really the card they need to do that to. We're using 2 call by, usually to counter the maxi, but also to counter any of the millers or shufflers in mirror or element or Runick or whatever. Using 1 crossout, as said earlier, to counter maxi. Also to counter maybe other cards if we don't want someone to call by the grave our maxi or one of the shufflers or millers. Using 1 droplet for weird corner cases where we want to negate an attack, not negate an attack, and negate an effect and half attack. Sometimes it works when we have a defense position, choose a card or a Munin, or we want to just negate an effect that maybe tries to pop our field or negate some. And it also could send some activated cards, so we could activate a Runick tip and then activate droplet, sending the activated Runick tip, which would still activate, but we basically got a free send. Anyway, onto the Runick cards. Each of these, you activate it, you skip your next battle phase, so if you're going to try and push with one of the special summon cards off of Cyberstein, be wary of that. Runick tip allows us, also each Runick card can special summon 1 Runick monster from your extra to your extra monster zone. So if you're doing link plays as well, be careful, you can't summon them to the monster zone if a link monster occupies it. Anyway, Runick tip allows us to add 1 Runick card to our, from deck to hand, and will banish the top card of your opponent's deck. And Runick alert, got to mention, each time a quick play is activated, so any quick play, including cross out, or by other quick plays and other archetypes, banish the top card of our opponent's deck. Runick allows us to add a card, put to hand, banishes 1. Flash of Fire allows us to target a special summoning monster and destroy it and banish 2. Which we have 3 of, because the max we can have. We only have 2 of most of them because they're limited to 2 in massive. Destruction is a spell trap destruction and banishes 4. Using Curses is an effect negation, monster effect negation, and banishes 3. Slumber is a kind of protection, but also a weird one that allows us to also target opponent's monsters if we want them to not destroy it for some reason. Usually we're going to use this on a Hugin or Munin, or Mary, or whichever card we don't want destroyed. So it would protect it against the next time it would be destroyed by battle or card effect. And also it cannot attack this turn. That's why you would maybe use it on an opponent's monster. Banishes 3. Fighting Storm, we were using 1 of, which I cut because I did have 2 of it, but we use 1 of it now. And I added the Ishizu cards. Banishes cards up to the number of cards they currently control. You want to try and hit a big 5, 6, or 7 of this. Sometimes you want to just get into the graveyard for a different Runick name. And the last one we got Golden Droplet. Usually we can use Droplet to special summon, but sometimes we want to have them draw 1, banish 4. You can also banish an extra off of their lure, so that's 6 down for them. The last one we got Dispel. So if they add a card from the deck to the hand, you can make them discard 1 random card from the hand and then banish 2. Quite good. You can use it under Maxi, or use it on the opponent's turn when you have Fountain. And then we've got 1 Imperm for some effect negation. You could probably not even use Imperm and use different spells, like maybe an extra Smiting Storm or Dispelling, but I like the Imperm, so I keep it. But on to the extra deck. We've got 2 Hugin, 3 Hugin, 1 Munin, and 2 Jerry. I think Hugin is obviously a good 3 of, it gets us to Fountain, and you want to see Fountain, so you can activate quick plays on your opponent's turn. And Hugin also protects Fountain as well. Munin is... I like it, but I don't think it's as good as Hugin, why we're only using 1 of it. That's a discard a card to add a continuous spell, so it only adds a lure. It also can heal us 1000 each end phase, and it can also banish itself to stop a card or effect that targets a Runick card. So that's either a spell, the Runick spell that you Fountain that you have active, or maybe the Allure if you want to protect that too. And then Jerry allows us to re-add a non-quick play runic spell, so we can add back the Fountain or the Allure if you want to when it is summoned. And also, when it's destroyed by battle, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So you can destroy a problem card on the field if they try and go over your Jerry. Hugin's also a 2, Mutan's a 3, and Jerry's a 4. So we can use Hugin to go into Sprite Elf stuff. We can use Jerry to go into some 4s like Abyssal or Dragon if we need to add a Floodgate or stop tier. Or go into Gigantic with Hugin. It's kind of funny. And we also don't really have good 2s we can special summon. However, there is one. Cyberstein. Then we have the 2 targets for Cyberstein, main targets, I would say. Rafflesia for monster banishes. I think it's decent to have. There's probably better uses, but I don't mind it. It's a good banish for stuff that's under level 7, so anything that Sprite does, this works for. Anything that's lower level for tournament, like the Kick Close or the normal monsters, the effective monsters even, quite good, but I think a Kaleido Heart out, it's a bit of a problem. Then we got Interior Exterior, which is one of the best Cyberstein targets in the whole deck. It allows us to, when a spell trap is activated, it allows us to banish one card from our graveyard and then send the top card of our deck to the graveyard to negate and destroy. But if it gets Booker Mooned or leaves the field, it does not resolve, so careful with that. We got the Xyz cards, so in case we get locked out of fusions for some reason, we can still do some plays. Like I said earlier, the reasons why we had Tornado Dragon and Abyssal. Then we go to links. We have Sprite Elf, which we usually will make with a Hugin and Maxi or Cyberstein when we've used it to summon Syria or something. And then we'll target a spent Maxi usually, or one that's milled to get it back to go into IP Masquerena. And IP Masquerena can get us into Cydia Avramax, who are running low on runic spells, and we want to go for an attack push or just get their life points with a Avramax that can't be destroyed by card effects, or we want to go for Cisco Talker to wipe the whole board. Gives us options, and you could also use different options as well. I think a good link to use is Underworld Goddess. Use one monster that your opponent controls and negates the effect of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. And it cannot be targeted by card effects, and it can't be destroyed by card effects if you also use IP Masquerena. You could also probably use other link ones, but I'm not entirely sure which ones you could use. Probably slide in a Link Reaver or Linger Reaver. Some weird corner cases, but I think this extra deck is perfect for my playstyle. Now to go over some sample hands to see what you would do. So in this case, I would send Foolish Burial to the use Foolish Burial to send a Guido or Kelbeck to the graveyard to mill 5. This 5 we can't simulate here, but maybe it hits some runic spell. I would then use Golden Droplet, going first, to go into Hugin, and then Hugin pitching one of the Flashing Fires because we use it to get a Fountain. Then activate Fountain, use Slumber, and recycle the used for runic spells, the one Droplet, Flashing Fire, and Slumber. Go back into our deck to draw 3. Those 3 could be Kelbeck, Guido, and Terraforming gets into the second Fountain to be in hand. In case they destroy our first one, these would probably be milled. For example, these 5 could be milled off of one Kelbeck send with a Foolish Burial. So the next 3 could be Runic Tip, Dimensional Fissure, and the Flashing Fire cycled, or a new one. This show we could activate straight away to stop Tailment or something like that if we know what we've milled vanishes. In a different hand like this, we can kind of break, which is kind of unfortunate, which is maybe why you might cut some of the Dimensional Fissures. Maybe have a Pot of Prosperity or Pot of Extravagance to try and eliminate this problem. You could still maybe do some stuff, and if you go in second, we have better plays because we almost always want to try and see 2 runic quick plays. 2 runic quick plays basically equals Fountain, Hugin Fountain, and recycling two Runick spells, which could get us into a Thunder and Medora. Medora allows us to shuffle other cards. We will also always activate Dimensional Fissure if we can. Be careful when activating Dimensional Fissure, as you will not be able to maxi, and you wouldn't be able to activate your millers or shufflers either. It's kind of a double-edged sword. The last hand, have another Dimensional Fissure, Lava Golem, Droplet, Curses, Hellbeck. Like I said earlier, if we have 2 Runick cards, then that gives us Fountain for free, basically. As long as we don't get Ash Blossom. If we go in second, we draw into a Guido. And we'd always try and discard a Guido or Kelbeck off of Hugin to try and bill 5. Bill 5. We might try and hit Runick cards. We want to try and do that first, or we use a Runick spell so that we can try and maybe go to Jerry or Munin, depending on what we need as well. Because if we discard a Runick Fountain, the only way of us getting it back is either using a Shuffler. Where can I? Helder or Medora, and shuffle the field spells back, or we need to use Jerry, try and get it back on summon. But sometimes these can be countered by using Cold Buy or Imperm, respectively. Be careful of that. Now, hopefully that will help you with the Ishizu Runick strategy, and if you see more of these deck lists, then leave a comment and like, all that good stuff. See you in the next video.